What's up guys, Seville here with another Power Rangers Lightning Collection action figure review. As you can see, today I'll be talking about the just recently announced 2-pack featuring the Fighting Spirit Green Ranger as well as the Mighty Morphin Putty Patroller. On the Monday after the SDC announcement, I very quickly went into GameStop to pre-order it, and it wasn't long before it was in my hands. It was originally believed to be a GameStop exclusive, but since then it has shown up on other websites such as Best Buy and Amazon. To aid in your hunt, here is the barcode on the bottom of the box, plus I will have the Amazon link in the description below. Now if you can give me just a few more seconds, I'll have these figures out of their package. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Before I get into all the details, I'm going to let each figure do a full rotation on the spinner, that way you can see them all the way around. Starting with the Green Ranger, let's take a good slow look going from the boots all the way up to the helmet. If you've never watched any of the shows past the Mighty Morphin series, you may have some questions about the design choices of this figure. The term Fighting Spirit refers to an episode of Dino Thunder when Tommy came back for a year. He had become that team's Black Ranger, but had an episode where he went through a dream sequence of fighting all of his former selves. Because the Green Ranger costume hadn't been used in over 10 years, and they didn't have one around anymore for whatever reason, they had to remake the costume from scratch, and in doing so, they took liberties with the design. Adding the silver color on the helmet, making the Morpher silver instead of gold like it's supposed to be for him, plus the Dragon Dagger holster was white instead of black and on the wrong side. Later on, that same suit was used in photography sessions for DVD covers and things of that nature. So even though this figure does not match the traditional Green Ranger's appearance with the gold Morpher, black holster, and no silver stripes, I'm not going to hold it against the figure because it does match the episode it's named after. What I will be holding against it though is the sloppy paint job for the white getting onto the visor. Next, you might be surprised to know that the shield is actually a totally separate piece. It turns out to be a soft rubber material, and the bands underneath are kind of stretchy, so it can come off, but I don't really recommend it. However, with it now off, we can get an idea of what a traditional Mighty Morphin Ranger would look like. The diamonds on both the front and the back are just painted on. There are no sculpted lines or anything separating the white from the green. And for the most part, they are good clean lines. Unfortunately, mine did suffer from a little bit of carelessness with some white stringy patterns in the green. Before I put the shield back on though, I might as well show you the head sculpt, and in case you've been wondering about its comparison to the White Ranger, it's basically the same. The only real difference I can see is the ponytail. I do wish they'd done something different here, because as the Green Ranger he did wear it down more often, so I was kind of hoping that they'd done something like that. When it comes to comparing the Lightning Collection to the 6.5-inch Legacy figures, the Lightning Collection tends to be shorter, but thicker in comparison to their size. Of course, the Legacy figures always had that really buff and cut appearance, while the Lightning Collection has a more natural-looking spandex effect. For the Green Ranger specifically, the gold stripes on the gloves and boots are a lot thicker on the Lightning than they are on the Legacy. Another good detail I want to point out is that the Lightning Collection figure actually painted the silver teeth in the visor area. The teeth were sculpted on the Legacy figure, but not painted. Their weapons have some paint and sculpt detail differences too. Just for clarification, the Lightning Collection set is on the left and the Legacy is on the right. I think the paint detail differences are kind of interesting for each one. Like, let's just look at the Dragon Daggers. The Lightning Collection dagger left out the gold details around the blade, but added the gold for the buttons. But I guess the real question is, which one looks better in the hand of the figure? Unfortunately, I'd have to give that answer to the Legacy figure. Also, I'm going to have to say that figure does better with the gold on the Dragon Shield as well. While it doesn't look bad, it doesn't even really match the gold on the armbands either. On the bright side though, the Lightning Green Ranger did come with this green lightning effect to put around the Sword of Darkness. There's not really any particular way it's supposed to go around the sword. It can kind of just loop in any way you want. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a left hand for gripping, so I can only hold one weapon at a time. But in the Fighting Spirit episode, he never actually had the Sword of Darkness, so it makes sense to only be using the Dragon Dagger. The Putty Patroller is much more standard to the Mighty Morphin series. The Putty figure does use most of the same body frame as the Ranger figure, with the only real differences being in the head sculpt as well as the hands. In the show, the Putties did have a few different facial expressions, but this one has mostly a neutral stance. Unfortunately, the red paint for the eyes is a little off and not quite as full as it should be. However, the black stripes across the body are all done pretty well. The forearms and hands of this figure are made of a rubber material similar to that of the dragon shield. The texture does seem to add to the putty effect, and they're all sculpted and painted really nicely. Each arm can swap out with a weaponized hand, the right side being the ball, the left side being the bladed edge, because the putties did have the ability to shapeshift their hands in the show. The bladed side does have a spark effect that can be slipped onto the end of it, and it does look great in combat poses. Speaking of poses, now let's take a moment to run through all of their articulation. The heads are on ball pegs, so they have a pretty good range of movement up and down, as well as 4 rotations side to side. The shoulders do spin all the way around, as well as move outward, plus they're on butterfly joints to increase the forward to back motion. The biceps do have full rotation, and the double jointed elbows do fold really well. The wrists on the Green Rangers are on pegs, so they do have full rotation as well as back and forth movement, but the Putty Patroller only has rotation where the arm comes off. Both figures have a really good ab crunch, enabling a lot of motion bending over backwards and frontwards. Instead of being on a tornado waist, the upper torso is on a ball joint, so that's where the side-to-side rotation comes in, plus it does add a little bit more movement to the front-to-back motion. The hips are on ball joints, but they don't really spread out as far sideways as I would like. However, the thigh cut does have full rotation, and the double jointed knees fold really well. Finally, the ankles do have a full range of front-to-back motion, as well as a pivot. So with all that said, it's time to run these two figures through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. These are brand new sculpts that are highly detailed and very accurate to the characters. These are in scale with the Lightning Collection. They do have more than 20 points of articulation, and they both balance really well. They do include plenty of accessories, and the $40 price point is fair for this pack. They have become much more accessible than I originally anticipated, but the one downside is the quality control issues. There was just too many paint flaws, and some of the joints were a little bent out of shape. However, that still leads to a 9 out of 10 star rating, meaning they are outstanding and some of the best of the year. I think the Lightning Collection alone is going to make my best of 2019 list a very crowded video. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video,
get over here!
And subscribe to Civilian Collectibles.